Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, I'll call this Board of Selectmen to order.
I'll call the Board of Finance to order.
We're not in a special meeting tonight.
Okay,
No.
you're just joining us. Okay.
Yeah.
So I think would everybody join us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
Sure.
Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the
United States of America,
and nation,
one nation, under God, indivisible, with justice for all.
Okay. So why don't we just jump right in, unless somebody wants to make a comment first. Rosa, you want to, and John, you want to make a presentation to the board?
Yeah, I think Ken's going to walk you guys through it. I think, tonight should be a good opportunity to kind of see where we're at. And I think we're in a good position to kind of to manage some things on our own. And Ken's going to walk you through all the details. So he's got a whole presentation lined up. So I'm just going to go ahead and let John and Ken go ahead and take it.
That's a good idea. Just so everybody's aware, I asked Marcia to put all the numbers together from the PowerPoint in one place, and I just sent that out about 15 minutes ago. So we can look at that also if you want. It was just an easier way to understand where everything is and where the moving parts are. Go ahead, John.
Okay, thanks, Steve. Thanks, everybody, for assembling tonight. I know everybody's busy, and we want to, in a very intelligent way, make sure we're communicating exactly what's going on the Board of Ed side and how we're opening up the schools safely for the students and making sure everybody's aware of exactly what's happening. So this is our school opening costs overview for everyone. And we want to update the Board of Selectmen and Board of Finance. I'm going to run through the first slide as a summary and then turn it over to Ken. So just to get everybody on the same page and center all of us so we're not confused and we're all working together, is on August 3rd, to bring us back. We presented a full view of the school reopening costs to the boards, and that was for the hybrid model, which is 50%. The 80% reopening model, that was based on initial data we had that perhaps 80% of the students, the parents were going to be sending their kids back, and then the 100% full reopening cost. The analysis updated for those estimates has been done. It's not significantly different, and we'll share that with you in just a second. At that meeting back on August 3rd, the Board of Finance approved us proceeding with the first tranche of money, just over $200,000, based on moving forward with the hybrid reopening plan, enrolling 3 months of operating costs into that tranche. Based on that plan to reopen, based on the plan to reopen at full capacity by November 9th, the second tranche of spending is required for approval. And tonight, specifically, the approval that the Board of Ed approved last night, forward to the Board of Selectmen and Board of Finance, is the desks and the desk shields for a total cost of about $103,000. The Board of Education has approved an additional $168,000 of additional cost, which we will cover with existing underruns, and we can share that with you. And also, no budget adjustment request is requested at this time, just approval to proceed. We continue to monitor budget underrun opportunities. So there's two charts to the right of this slide, and I'll be very brief with you. So like I said, we have August 3rd and now August 25th. As you can see, the hybrid plan, the minor adjustment from $530,000 that we shared at that meeting almost a month ago now is up by about $7,000 to $538,000 in cost. Moving to the 80% model, and so the numbers align, so it's very easy for everybody to follow. Was a $655,000 estimated cost, and we're estimating about $10,000 more to make that work. And then for full reopening, we had talked about $702,000, which is up in our estimate going forward by $7,800 for a total of $710,000. Also, just taking a look at things that were approved in the first tranche that we talked about and things that we've moved forward on. We talked about staffing in the first third of the year, the first 90 days. That was monitors and some other staffing for $82,000. That was approved. We did not move forward on desks in the hybrid model. That's what we're here for tonight. We did move forward with shields for not only the student desks, but for teachers and for some office staff. That was a cost of $82,000. The second half of the student shields that we're looking to purchase tonight, along with the desks, the shields is a $61,000 cost. We purchased the partitions, the PPE, other equipment, the storage units. As you can see there, that was part of the first tranche of $201,000. Tonight, like I said, we're coming forward with $103,000. So that's the basic overview to kind of just settle us all in. I'd like to turn it over to Mr. Post with the more formal details.
Thanks, Dr. Brill. So to run through the changes since the first estimate, the biggest change is the desk shields. They were more expensive than originally estimated. We estimated $62 and the actual cost is $68.70. Other prices had a much smaller impact. Some were up, some were down. Most of the rest of the change was in the storage container rental units. As we went through the process of having the principals actually physically set up their rooms, we were able to trim down our request for the number of desks needed in both the 80% scenario and in the full 100% reopening. So as you can see on the chart on the bottom right, the shields had the biggest impact. That would be the student desk shields, had the biggest impact on the price changes, with desks having a lowering effect because of the lower quantities. And then the other, again, the bulk of the other is the storage containers.
And I think one thing that's important to remind everybody here, a big part of the difference in the count at the elementary school in terms of the desks was we were fortunate enough to work with our friends over in Bethel, and with their school renovation projects, we were able to obtain 41 desks of primary age child size to help us out over at center school. So that's a part of the reduction in number of desks needed. We were able to get some help there from a neighbor. Thank you, Ken. So
last night, the Board of Ed met and reviewed a number of new requests at its meeting. At the prior Board of Finance meeting, the Board of Finance requested that the Board of Ed fund as much as possible through budget underruns. And the Board of Ed approved a budget transfer from underruns to cover these items. In addition to that, we're using $35,492 of Title II grant money for the new ELA, which will be used for this coming year. So as you can see, the new items are document cameras for $45,000, IXL Math, Lexia, and Talking Points. Those three are all curricular tools. Hand sanitizer, which we are now required to have, and movers, which we use to help move furniture out of the buildings and help the principals set up their rooms the way they did, which helps us achieve the savings in needing less desks. For funding sources, we saved money in the special education summer program, primarily from not needing to transport the students and from not needing to have a nurse on site. Professional development, we've trimmed back $30,000 of professional development that would normally have to be done in person that we're not going to be able to do. Transportation, we're going to have savings of a little under $23,000 because we, with St. Joseph's closed, we don't have to make all of the extra bus runs to account when they're open and we're closed, or when one of us has a half day and the other does not. And then we're transferring a little less than $6,500 in savings from our reorganization of our special education life skills program to cover the $132,229. And this is the potential funding sources, which you've all seen before, just updated for what we've actually realized so far, and the far right column is what we've utilized. And that includes the CARES grant, which, as you know, we've committed to the Chromebooks. So that's a total of $239,000 utilized, or $167,000 if you take out the CARES grant.
Does utilize mean spent?
Oops, sorry.
Does utilize mean spent?
I would say committed, not yet spent.
Okay, allocated. Okay.
Yes, allocated. That's a good word.
Okay.
Thank you. So the August 3rd presentation did not include the items that were previously approved by the Board of Selectmen and Board of Finance, primarily the Chromebooks and laptops. We've kept this presentation on the same basis as the 8-3 meeting to allow for a simpler comparison. The Board of Education agreed to fund items directly from budget underruns where possible. The new items addressed in the prior slide are in addition to this analysis, but not a funding request to the town. And then the table below has a summary of the overview. So the prior items, the Chromebooks, the laptops, and the PPE and the electrostatic sprayers was $150,447. And then this analysis was shown on a previous slide, as was the Board of Ed approved. So now the new totals for reopening of 856,000 in hybrid, 983,000 at 80%, and 1,028,000 at 100%. And then just an update on the status of the items approved on August 3rd. Lunch monitor jobs have been posted. We're having some success getting them, but I don't think we're anywhere near as many as we desire. Cleaning service, we're in the process of reviewing the bids. There will be savings in that because all of the bids came in lower than the estimate I had put on the worksheet. But we're checking references on the 3 lowest bidders, and I emailed out a number of follow-up questions to all of them just to clarify that they will meet our needs. The shields are scheduled to be here around September 1st, as are the partitions. The gloves are in the process of being ordered. UV sanitizers and webcams have been received. Special supplies kits have been partially ordered for center school. The carts and all the other items have been ordered. Also, individual whiteboards and pointers have all been ordered, and the storage containers are on site. And that's it.
All right, Ken, can we go back to the first page?
Absolutely.
All right. On the first page, the top graph, that's something I think we all expected to see. Small changes, 7,000, 10,000, 7,000 is part of the process. On the
Yes.
second chart, we had this discussion today with Rosa. The desks numbers aren't right. So is that the right number in there, or is that missing the 10% shipping?
This is the number that I've had in there all along, Mr. Rooney.
But how'd you get to that number? Because if you take the desks, you add the assembly fees, and then you take the quote number, there's a 10% difference.
I got the unit prices and the assembly fees from Mr. Gay.
Yeah, but there's a 10%.
I was not aware that there was, excuse me?
It's in the quote.
I don't know that I ever saw the quote.
So that number's got a 10% fee on top of it. So your desks are $6 more a piece.
We can certainly make that change then.
Because when I looked at the quotes today, I looked at the summary sheet, saw that the actual added up the numbers, they don't add up to what you got. And then while we're on the desk subject, in our budget, we approved 3 sections at center school for new desks in the prior year budget. Where's that 15,000 roll in?
No, we approved 1 section additional, and we took those out of the tally when we showed you, presented to you on August 3rd.
You took the 5,000 out.
We took the 24 desks out.
So how do we get then, because that leads to the confusion of what's in this budget that you finally approved to what is not included in the budget? What were the pay aheads? Because on your pay aheads, the last data we have is you paid ahead 15,000 for desks and for the units. Also, there was that extra kindergarten teacher that was in there for 10 sections. So it's hard to understand what's in the budget versus what we can offset some of these costs are. Because again, the last data that we have is a presentation by John that said there was 3 units in there that we paid ahead of the 102,000. We paid 15,000 on the pay ahead process, which would have been 3 classrooms of desks.
No, we didn't pay ahead. We didn't pay ahead that many. Go ahead, John.
No, go ahead. Could you clarify that? Because it's a good question and we need to just get through that so there's an understanding.
Sure. The only thing we paid, we took out of our budget all three sections, the furniture and the instructional supplies for all three sections. The only thing we bought ahead was for one section because that's all we approved at the end of the run. So all three sections came out of the budget for 2021. But
So
we
do
actually
we keep
bought
the
the-
3 teachers in then? Because that's all your notes say. If you're keeping the teachers, you're keeping the costs, and your notes say if you took out 2 teachers, you're going to remove 2 costs. So did we remove 2 teachers? Because I have all your notes that clearly
Yes.
state on your takeaways that if you have 2 teachers, you had 3 teachers for center school, 2 in the first grade, 1 in the kindergarten. I don't know where you finally ended up at, 2 or 1, but in your notes, even on the furniture notes on the presentations you gave to us, you said you were going to keep in the sections per teacher. So did we not hire the teachers? Because it's clearly in your notes of the takeaways. I can go back to a July email that shows it. So I'm sort of confused of what is in the budget at the end that we have in that account that we can use going forward and what isn't, because it's not making sense.
We took all of those desks out of the budget for 2021.
All 3 sections of desks we took out
Yes.
of the budget.
All of them came out of the budget, and we've got an order in to get one classroom full of desks.
Okay, so if this was all, okay, I'm confused, but we can move on from that because if you're going to hire the 3 teachers and we're going to have the classrooms,
We didn't hire
No.
3 teachers.
One
Okay.
teacher,
One teacher.
one teacher.
that's all we left in the budget was 1 teacher.
Yes,
So we have 2 positions, 1 first grade position and 1 center school position that we're not hiring.
correct.
Those were new positions. And
Yeah,
we-
so Glenn, when we made the final disposition on the budget,
Right.
we concluded that we would not hire 1 teacher in each of those grades and not order the accompanying desks or there's a couple of and sundry staffs, like some phys ed and things like that. So
Perfect.
we
So
we
now
took
that clarified.
We took all of that out. It was the only way to solve the budget, and the class sizes are a little higher than we wanted, but it was the right answer.
That clarifies it totally. Thank you, Bob. That's
You're
exactly,
welcome.
that makes sense now. So,
Yeah.
Thanks,
okay.
Bob.
So
I'm
the
sorry,
number
Bob,
that,
could you repeat, John, I'm sorry, I didn't quite get that. Could you repeat that, Bob?
So when we, remember, we got very significant cuts to our budget.
Right.
Steve. So when we did our final deliberation on how to solve those budget cuts, which I'd be very glad to send you the spreadsheet of where we took the final cuts.
No, I'm good. I just want
But
to hear.
But if you remember, we had originally planned to have 3 additional teachers between kindergarten and first grade.
Right.
And that dragged along desks needs, it dragged along phys ed teacher time and so forth. We took 2 of the 3 out and
Okay.
we're living with slightly larger class size because of it.
Okay. I just wanted to make sure. I didn't quite understand what you said. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
so then on this, just this page 2, we just need to verify the price of the desks. What's the real price of the desks? Because that number's not right.
So Ken, so I'm clear, our purchasing manager did not give you copies of these quotes, he just gave you numbers to work with?
I don't recall seeing any quotes, Bob.
Okay, so it was
This was
just,
a while ago.
I feel, Glenn, that what we've got was some opaqueness from our purchasing manager, not sharing the quotes with our finance manager. So I think, Ken, you just got to go get your hands on the quotes and
Yeah,
build it up from scratch.
Okay.
yeah, I can do that.
All right, then page 3 makes sense when you correct the numbers. Page 4, let's go to, please. So what we have here is, these are extra costs, which nobody's saying anything bad about. These were add-ons. The
I have a question about
software-
an extra cost.
It's not, it's an add-on cost.
Hmm.
Right?
That's correct. These were unplanned items that we
Correct.
concluded that with the kids being remote, we should invest.
Exactly. Totally in the process of being fluid, things changing daily, best solution for our children.
That's
What
that's
you
what
found-
we reviewed last night. That's correct.
Yes, so what you found is you got 35,492 from a grant that you paid for the new ZLA out of. You found 132,227 to cover your other costs. Now, at your meeting last night, there was a statement this was just a wash. You took transfers of 132 and washed them out against the savings washed out, but you still had extra savings, I believe, of like $50,000 or something that was discussed last night.
That's correct. And it's on the next chart. And if you flip forward, Ken, to the opportunity.
Wait, before you guys go forward, I have a question on this page.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
On page, I'm so sorry, Glenn, I'm sorry to interrupt. On page 20 of the school reopening plan that was sent out, the state, it was a big red star stating that the state required hand sanitizers. So if we knew that that was a part of the school reopening plan and on page 20, why is it a new requirement now? Because that school reopening plan that was sent out had that specific start and a requirement by the state. And that's
We haven't even-
$17,500.
We hadn't been able to get it until a few days ago.
Literally couldn't get it.
Literally,
That was it for
literally.
us.
It just, when you say it's a new
We had to go
requirement, it
pick it
made
up.
it sound like it jumped up out of nowhere.
No.
And that was my confusion. Thank
Yeah.
you.
We could put a little asterisk next to that or something, but good point.
Yes.
All
Okay,
right.
so if we
Wait,
just
sorry. You couldn't get the hand sanitizer, or you couldn't get the instructions that hand sanitizers were required?
The hand sanitizer in the quantities we need with the dispensers.
But you needed them, so why wouldn't you have included them?
This is
It
an
just doesn't make any sense.
This was an increase to what this was in addition to what we
Because we added the,
identified.
We had
Oh,
some.
you had
We had
hand
some, but not
sanitizer
nearly
amount.
enough.
This is in addition to, because it's under new requirements, so it sounds like it was this is the cost for the hand sanitizers.
for the
So,
brevity,
okay.
I think it's easy to say for the brevity of the chart, it's in that under the heading new requirements, it probably should have a little asterisk next to it or something like that because
Yeah.
it can be.
Gotcha. Sorry. Yeah. Okay, because it's unclear. Thank you.
All right, so let's go on to the next slide.
Wait, a minute, can I just jump in there quickly? I'm
Yeah.
looking at all the stuff that was originally given to us, and hand sanitizer wasn't in there at all, that I see.
I thought we had some in there and we just couldn't, we're trying
Now,
to
you
get.
got UV sanitizers, but not that. Okay. that's
Okay.
fine.
So Glenn, on the last chart, you'll see down on the bottom, we only use 6,471 from the special ed life skills program. The discussion at our Board of Ed meeting is the actual savings on that program, and you can see it's the third to bottom line on this chart. The actual savings was $55,000. And that we got that savings by bringing the jobs in-house and not using a third party. And so we only have used 6,471 of that. So the rest of that is still out there unapplied. In addition, we haven't applied any of the presentation stations, which we agreed we're not going to do because we have fewer kids in the schools, nor have we used any of the 5 fewer working days money. So the total you may notice here is 314,000 of savings that we've booked. We've only applied 239 of it. That's about 80,000, just short of $80,000 that's unapplied, and it could go against the, if you remember your motion the last time, we said that would be funding less any budgetary savings that we identified. That 80 could be applied to that, or we could just let it sit for the time being until we continue to have these discussions. So when I talked to Ken and Rosa and John after our meeting last night, I said, considering there's 80 some odd $1,000 already of unapplied budgetary underruns, and there's another $200,000 in float on all the stuff that's kind of up there with the blank under the actuals. Why would we be asking for budget transfers at this point? We ought to let it roll, get everybody's agreement that we should go ahead and proceed with the program, but we shouldn't at this point be getting into budget transfer discussions on this next tranche. That was my kind of take looking at the numbers.
Bob, I agree with you. We don't want to be doing 50 transfers, right?
No,
That doesn't
No,
make sense.
we've already made the one motion for the first installment, and quite frankly, at this point, I think this is more about giving everybody the nod to proceed, because I think there's more than enough savings coming to be starting to cover a lot of these risks already. So, and we're continuing to look.
Okay, can I ask one question? I haven't seen this. All along, the CARES Fund grant was $74,096, and now it's $71,890. Do we know why that changed, or did the state just change it?
No,
Yeah,
well, we actually mentioned this at one of our previous meetings. The balance of the grant is the part that we have to share with the Christian Life Academy.
Oh, so that's the difference?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
While we're on grants and talking about it, before we leave this page, I have another question is, do we know of any other grants that we've received that are going to help us in this cause?
We did get notice last week of additional monies that could be available. I have not had any instructions yet on how to apply for them. And they, for some reason, in the amount that they allocated to Brookfield, the vast majority of it was listed under transportation. And we are not incurring any additional transportation costs with our reopening or because of COVID. So that's a bit puzzling.
It is, and just so you know, Glenn, on that question is we filled out some paperwork for the state. Each district was asked to do that, and we didn't ask for transportation money yet. They gave us some transportation reimbursement money for COVID costs. So we're unclear as to why that is. In talking with the superintendents and business directors in our regional districts, there's some confusion in every district as to how the state has put out this first communication of how the money's to be allocated. So I think there's going to be some adjustments there.
And what's this grant called?
What was this?
I don't remember the name. Was it 160?
40,000, 140,000.
140?
But these are the types of things, John, that when we're going through these meetings, it's nice to know what is out there, what we can work together on. I mean, these, and it's not in these presentations.
No, it's not. It's not. And I think Marcia just last week at the meeting went over what she knows is out there that we've all been working together on, and she laid that out. So I didn't know it would be appropriate to lay all those out because frankly, we're unsure of what they are at this point and how to even obtain the funds.
And I think to Glenn's point though, even if we don't know exactly what they are, it should be listed, potential. We don't know what it is, but here it is. So we don't forget it, because there's a bunch of different grants out there.
And it goes all into the decision-making processes of what to do, who to help. Marcia's looking at things. And when we find out, last week there was a $140,000 grant out there possibly, it'd be nice to include them in these conversations of there's extra money out there that we could possibly get. And what do we need to do as a team to get it? And it should be part of a presentation like this as we're talking about grants of here's a potential. It gives us a big picture. We're looking at little pictures, we're trying to all do our best, but that's a big picture item.
Glenn, this is Harry. I have one quick question talking about grants and potential savings. Do we know what the status is with the magnet school in Danbury and our students going there? Is that going to be open? Are we going to be getting savings from them, from the amount of students that are going to be going if they're going to open? Do we have any information on that?
We don't have any formal information on that, Harry. What I would tell you is that money is allocated for those students, and that's how it was last year as well when they were in remote learning. It looks as though Danbury, for the start of the school year, they were supposed to start in hybrid. They were moving to remote. Those students are students of the Danbury Public Schools, not of the Brookfield Public Schools. And even though they live in Brookfield. And so as far as we know, there has been no decision that would turn that around and have those students come back to us or be any kind of change in how we have allocated the funds for those seats.
So will the tuition per student per Brookfield student, will that remain the same even though it is now a full remote?
That's what it was last year, so I don't think there'd be any change there. Ken, have you heard any? We've heard nothing. I've heard nothing.
No, and we're committed to 43 seats.
Yeah, but the money doesn't, for the tuition doesn't go through our books, does it?
We pay it, yeah. It's in our budget.
Okay.
Can I ask about another savings question? For the transportation, so now that Danbury, so the AIS kids will be remote learning until the beginning of October. So there's a busing fee. I know that that was a recent decision, so that might not be a number that we know, but would there be a cost savings on that transportation? And also, this doesn't account for our hybrid through November 9th, which would be an additional 10 fewer days of busing. So has that been accounted for in our transportation contract?
That part has not yet. I actually have been in contact with the bus company. We're supposed to meet this week to talk about making an adjustment for that very reason. As far as the magnet school transportation goes, there might be some savings, but our costs are mostly offset by the magnet school transportation grant, which is also in our budget.
Okay.
So I would expect that if we have reduced costs, we would be receiving less money from the state on that.
Okay.
Staying on the transportation, how did we calculate the 5 fewer days to equate to 35,179?
I took the amount that we pay per day per bus times the number of buses we run.
Okay, because when I was reading the contract, we run 32 buses a day. It costs us $355 per day. It comes out to $11,372, which equates to $2 million of our transportation budget. So I don't know how we backtrack to the contract. The contract states 21 tier 1 hybrid 1 buses, 11 tier 2 buses, counts for 32 buses. Each one of those rates, like I say, is $355 per day, which equates to $11,372 per day. So how do we come up with 35,179?
I'd be
Are we
happy to
not
dig up
running 32 buses? Because then the $2 million number is wrong.
I'd be happy to dig up my calculation and get it to you, but I don't have it with me.
I have the contract. I could post it. I can post
I
up to
understand that.
355. I could post up to 32 buses.
So Ken, that's a fair thing. Dig out the analysis. I know you're running back and forth to your office. Dig out your analysis. Let's send it over to Glenn. Let him take a look at it.
I can do that tomorrow when I'm in the office.
Okay. All right.
And just you had asked ways back, but I'm not as aggressive on getting into the conversation about the grant that it's called the Coronavirus Relief Fund, which is also the same name as a townside grant because they're not very clever. And it's referred on the spreadsheet we went through last week of the different grants as the $160 million grant. It goes by the initial CRF. And the total amount we found out on Friday was $146,245.
And of that 146,000, how much did they earmark for transportation?
About 75,000.
About half of it.
Yep.
And we don't know how to apply for it yet. Is that what I'm hearing?
We looked on Friday and there was nothing out there yet.
No.
Marcia, I'm looking at it, this CRF, it's total of 146,245 and 115,366 is transportation.
That's what I thought the number
Right.
was.
Okay, let me.
I mean, I'm looking at
And
the
this is-
printout.
This is the same way they rolled out the CARES money. They
Yeah.
told us how much money we were going to get, and then it was weeks and weeks before we got any guidance at all on how to use it. And then more time passed before they opened the application. And then after the application was open a little while, they closed it up again and then just reopened it a week or two, about 2 weeks ago, 2.5 weeks ago.
Yep. And they told us on this one that there was an application process, and then they sent an email with the grant amount that with no application process.
Correct.
So on this one, is the town the one who applies for it, or is it the schools, or do we just not even know yet?
We don't know. We have not gotten a request to fill out an application. We just got a listing of what the amounts were by town.
Oh my goodness,
I'll
I love
send
art
it out.
speak sometimes. So,
But
Yeah,
to your
it's
point, Bob,
confusing.
I would think it's the school because it was John that got the email and not us.
No, I got it too, though. I got it, Ginny. I mean, Marcia.
All right, can we go on to the next page then?
can I just suggest something, guys, just so I can close this one out? As we continue this journey of regularly meeting with the, to go through these, the status and the numbers, we ought to add a chart into our standard deck on all grant money related to COVID and where we are on it, right?
Correct.
And so
Yeah.
everything that walks, we need to see it. Glenn is absolutely right about that.
Yeah, I agree, 100%.
So then let's go to the next page. So on here, I get what you guys did. I understand. I mean, you got a clear path. I understand it. But in my email, like we're talking about, the Chromebook should be listed as an item instead of a notation that they were offset. I mean, I get what you did. I follow. I know nothing was done underhanded. I get all of that. But it's been left off of every list, the Chromebooks, and it's still a cost that we've brought on. And the extra cost of the $50 per Chromebook, not at the fault of anybody, but because stock and we can't get what we want, isn't notated. Now we're buying 750 Chromebooks, so $50 becomes a significant number per unit. And we don't have that anywhere in this other than the $70,000 grant, or $72,000 or 74 with the minus of the Montessori school or the, the
Christian Life Academy.
Yeah. We don't have a full cost of the grants versus the true liabilities, because even the $50 per Chromebook is still $15,000 on the 300. So, I mean, that's a significant number and it's not listed in any of the liabilities. You offset the original costs with the grant, which I get what you did, but we still have the 50, and I don't know if the $50 applies to the 450 you have on your end on your budget process, because the total amount of Chromebooks we're ordering is 750.
And I think, Glenn, to your point, we could come back with that listed out, make it very clear. The other point to that is, as you know, is there's a whole supply chain issue with that. And we could come with a full
Correct
on the Chromebooks anyway, which is a whole separate story that, we.
So can we look at, Marcia did this for me. Marcia, can you bring up the spreadsheet?
Wait a minute, one more page, Stephen. We can close this whole
Okay,
thing
go
down,
ahead.
this presentation. So let's
Sure,
go
go
to the
ahead.
last page. So on something like this too, I get what you all did. I understand, but on the actual, there's no summation, which makes it hard to figure out where we stand actual to spend. So like on your line items, you actually spent 111, you have 201 as your liability or approved money. You've spent on the items that list up to 111,000. We spent 115 against the 111,000. If you add up the numbers of actual versus the approved amount in category. Now I know it's fluid. I understand things change. I'm not belittling that process, but we right now on each of these categories, we're down 5,000. If you add up the 55 to the 61, the 19 to the 17 and do an aggregate, it's 111 to 115. It's just easier to follow.
So I would disagree with you on it, but but I understand your point.
Because right now we don't know where we stand, Bob. I see what you're saying, but we don't know. If you come in right now, actual to actual, approved to actual, you're overspent by 5,000. If every one of those approved items turns to actual, the 9708 turns to 9708.
Okay, Glenn, I understand your point. Look, we know the student desk shields are over. We know the storage containers were over. You go through the rest of the line items, there's some pluses and some minuses.
Correct.
We know the special supplies kits at CES, they've only partially ordered it. So we put the stuff that's been committed, but we know they're going to get closer to the 3,700 and there's a whole bunch of blanks there. So I'm the one who took off the subtotal. Ken had a subtotal on there and it didn't make any sense whatsoever because it did exactly the math that you were saying. Somebody's going to compare 201 to 115 and say, why is it underrunning so much? And the answer is we haven't incurred most of the stuff. And so I love totals too, much like you do. But in this case, I felt it was misleading and I took it off the chart.
All right, but, and I'll argue the reverse of that is, and respectfully argue the reverse of that is, we could be overspent there and you don't have an idea that you're going to overspend. If you're not paying close attention to it, it could easily get overspent.
But that's why we went and did the analysis and the first two charts is we went through all the pluses and minuses, incorporated it in the spreadsheet, and then we summarized it on the chart 3 in this deck.
Okay.
That's why I built that chart for the town, because to be able to show you explicitly that we know where the overruns were, and they are mostly, the overruns are all driven by the student desk shields and the
overruns I agree with.
In the storage containers. So
the overruns nobody's fault. It's not even close to anybody's fault.
That's
It's
not
the
a fault. It's
fluidity of
not
the
a fault
problem.
thing, but you're acting like we're not paying attention, and we are.
All right. I'll leave it at that. All right, I'm done.
Should I stop sharing?
Does anybody else have any other questions?
Yeah. So I think it was that last page that we were just looking at and talking about the shields and the partitions, and they're due here on 9/1. Kind of tight, in my opinion, from when our start date is for school. If they're not here, can we start school when we're supposed to, if they haven't arrived?
It's going to be a real challenge. So to be very honest with you, we're
And I
counting
know
on
we have a
those.
problem with Chromebooks already, so
Yeah. So we're counting on those for lunch, the way we're setting up lunch, so kids are in their cohort. We have some backup solutions. I don't know that those are perfect, but we're counting on them for 9/1. Just leave it at that. And that's Tuesday. So, yep. And we ordered
Tuesday, so meaning that they should probably be shipping in the next day or two, or are they coming from local? That I know some equipment was coming local, but
I have to ask Ken that one. I'm not sure exactly where that's coming from.
yeah, because we should be able to know
in the Chicago area.
Yeah, so we'll know really soon in the next day or two if we're going to get them on 9/1.
Yeah, I emailed the rep for a status report.
And I should say, I just was going through the emails tonight, and Jerry received an email asking for the contact names at each of the schools that I forwarded to Ken and Dan during this meeting. So it does seem like they may be on their way.
Okay.
Let's just hope they're not sending it through the U.S. Postal Service.
Steve, this is Harry. I have a couple quick, short questions.
Go ahead.
And anyone can answer, whether it's any of the boards. What is the latest survey? When's the last time we have contacted the parents to get an idea of how many students are coming back or planning on coming back?
Gary, with the information that we have as accurate as it can be right now, we had about 400 to 500 parents not respond to the survey we sent out about a week and a half ago. Staff has been constantly calling those families to find out what their decision is, whether to elect for 100% remote or to come in for hybrid. We're getting that information. We're compiling it by school, but I don't have it in one nice, neat chart just yet. It's being entered into Power School and so forth. We're around 82%, so it's holding similar to that early summer survey we did, coming in for hybrid, and a good number of students staying home for remote, and then a few students withdrawing in total.
Okay, and how many did respond, roughly? How many?
Let me just think for a second. If I say around 19 to 2100. I'd have to go back in my notes on that.
Yeah.
In response to 2600 and change for students. And then at the same time, there's always the typical withdrawals and move-ins. And then considering where we're at now, we're really watching the move-ins as well, because we've all heard about folks fleeing New York and moving into Connecticut. So we're watching that as well.
They may be.
So Harry, I'll just give one additional color. When we met at our last board meeting, we were hearing from each of the principals that they're seeing an influx of students coming into Brookfield, and to the tune of 30 per school.
net.
which 30 kids in a school at the elementary level, that's a section.
Yeah.
And or more. And so there's a lot of interesting dynamics going on.
And then Bob, if you don't mind, Harry, just one more piece to that. The other interesting dynamic is decisions that parents are making with their kindergarten children. So we're really watching that closely as well.
Right. Thank you. What type of research are we doing when we're purchasing these the products and the wares, like the desks and the shields? Are we just going to retail distributors? Are we checking anywhere else, Army Reserve, or anywheres where we can save money, maybe not buy at retail? Or, are we buying everything at retail at this point?
No, this has primarily gone through a pretty extensive process where we went out for bids. We actually went to Amazon. We asked for bidders to come in and quote us. We did have time constraints here, so we loosened up our policies a little bit. But Harry, this wasn't just, calling somebody up and taking their price. We actually went through every item.
I understand that. I just would
And
think
desks from Bethel.
that, yeah.
Zero cost from Bethel.
Yeah. All right. And as far as our estimates, when we started with our estimates, are they based, when we are doing our estimates, our early numbers, is that based on what we think it's going to be, or do we call to find out at that time, how much is a mask going to be? How much are desks, so that we have a more accurate number in our estimates?
No, we confirm it. We confirm it. And our purchasing agent confirmed it.
So on the shields, is the pricing, the increase in price per shield, is it because between then and now the price is going up, or how did that estimate go up $6,000 or $7,000 or $8,000?
Ken, you're closer to that than I am. I didn't get into the detail.
I mean, did we have a price on shields when we had the estimate and the price just went up, or did we just underestimate?
On some of them, I know that that the price was different because we originally were pricing out 100% of the reopening. And then when we cut back to the hybrid, the volume wasn't there. So the cost per unit was different. And I know, because Jerry works across the hall, and I know he worked very hard on this, that some of them, it was just a moving price, as this company had it and then they didn't have it, and this company had it and then they didn't have it. So there's a number of different causes that I know. I don't know about other ones you might know, Ken.
I think we've found that with a number of things. I actually, I'd gotten a number of quotes online for the carts. And that's the price I put in this worksheet. And then after we finally got approved and went to place the order, they were out of that model. So we had the next one was a little bit more expensive. So, and we kind of been saying this all along, that, based on availability and what supplier has what, it's a moving target at best.
Okay, I think that's pretty
Good
much,
questions.
I think that's pretty much what I had. Thank you.
Does anybody else have any other questions?
I would say one thing, on that 150,000, I couldn't figure out where that number came from until you were talking tonight, that I knew it was the 126 that was the laptops and Chromebooks. And then during the presentation, you talked about the UV sprayers and something else. We have those right now in last year's budget. So that's why my numbers were a little bit different on the thing that Steve asked me to do, were 25,000 different, because we had ordered them in last year's budget, and right now they're an encumbrance in last year's budget. It's just a timing thing, but let's say the UV sprayers, that if that company can never get them in and we say we're going to cancel that order and get it from somebody else, we would have to just cancel that purchase order, do a new purchase order for this year, and it would just switch fiscal years. So I just want to let you know that it's out there, and it's an accounting issue, just the cutoff of the years. So right now, my numbers on the thing that Steve asked me to do and send out tonight are $25,000 lower, and they may change, but
Okay, so then the numbers reconcile pretty closely then.
they reconcile exactly.
They reconciled exactly. I actually went through that, Steve. And when I saw Marcia's and I saw the numbers were different, I could see exactly what the reconciling items were.
Yeah, and the $12.99, as I'm listening to the presentation, I know where to find it. I'm not going to look for it, but I know where to find it now that of what you were talking about in the 12.
That's good.
$12.99.
That's great. I have to say, I would like one place where everything is, as in the spreadsheet that I sent you. It's very hard, at least for me, to go from the spreadsheet I sent to the PowerPoint and then back, what's included, what's changed, what hasn't. I would prefer to have it all in one place. You know, I have no doubt that the schools are educating our children properly. I just want to see the numbers, and when you add something, I wasn't able to join the meeting, but document cameras for 45,000. Marcia explained to me what those were. I said, okay, well, I'm good. You know, IXL math. Okay, that's a new program. I'm good. I trust you guys to do your jobs. I just want all the numbers in one place so we don't lose track of anything.
Yeah, so Steve, on the spreadsheet, I actually made the decision to make it consistent with the August 3rd because I thought it would add more confusion. And what I talked to Ken about is after this meeting, I want to just now get it to all the pieces are in the one spreadsheet. And I saw how you did it. I'd do it a little differently, but it's okay. We'll get it so that from now forward, it's always in one sheet and we can see exactly what's happening. So
yeah, we can argue about formatting and stuff like that. Just as long as anybody looking at it can go, okay, I follow it. I got it. Okay, it's down this, it's up that.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay.
Including, by the way, I think it ought to be, it shouldn't matter what fiscal year it's in. It ought to be the total picture. And we happen to fund some of it in the last fiscal year and some of it in this fiscal year and some of it's budget and others are funded by underruns. That's all part of the solution. So.
Yeah, we should have caught that. And then I think, as you said, Bob, put all the grants, and Glenn said this, all the grants, let's have a listing of that so we know what our offset is. Those grants may not be perfect. We may not get all of them, but at least we have an idea.
Oh, I think we have to have here's the list of the grants available. Here's the list. Here's the status of the filing and request for it. I mean, this ought to be a standing report that both the Board of Ed, the Board of Selectmen, and the Board of Finance all see every month.
I agree.
In my view.
100%. We'll work on that on our side. We'll work with Ken and John.
Yeah,
sure
I think that'll work great.
Okay.
So does anyone have any other questions for Ken or John?
I don't. So you're not asking for any motion to be made tonight. You were just wanted to inform us of what you're doing. And I think you've done that. And we've got further questions. I don't think any board is shy to ask those questions.
Never are.
No.
and rightfully so.
Yeah. And if anybody has questions, if not tonight, then let's just send them out. Let's send them to everybody so everybody can see what those are. I know that might be a little cumbersome, but I'd certainly like to see everybody's questions or concerns as we work through this, because we're going to be doing this over and over and over again, I think. So if nobody has any other comments or questions or concerns, I guess we can close this meeting. Is Rosie, you agree?
Yeah.
Glenn?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Thank you all very, very much for meeting on such short notice. This has been very helpful for me. I know that. Thanks, guys.
Thank you, everyone. Thank
Have
you
a
all.
good night.
Thank you all.